Hello, it's Gary with Helicopter Ground, and I'm going to talk to you today about Aeromedical. Physiological factors, including drugs and alcohol, affecting pilot performance. Pilot restrictions. 14 CFR Part 107 does not allow operation of small unmanned aircraft if the remote pilot, or PIC, the person manipulating the controls, or visual observer is unable to safely carry out his or her responsibilities. It is the pilot in command's responsibility to ensure all crew members are not impaired. A crew member is any person involved in the small unmanned aircraft operation. No person will act as the PIC or crew member if he or she has consumed any alcoholic beverage within the preceding 8 hours or has a blood alcohol concentration of 0.04% or greater, or is using a drug that affects the person's mental or physical capabilities. It is a pilot's responsibility to conduct a self-evaluation and identify any condition that would make flight operations unsafe. Important medical factors that a pilot should be aware of include the following, and we will talk in detail about each of these to keep you safe and to know what you need to know for your practical or oral part of your check ride. Hyperventilation, stress, fatigue, dehydration, heat stroke, the effects of alcohol and drugs. First, we'll talk about hyperventilation. This is the excessive rate and depth of respiration leading to abnormal loss of carbon dioxide from the blood. This condition occurs more often among pilots than is generally recognized. It seldom incapacitates completely, but it causes disturbing symptoms that can alarm the uninformed pilot. In such cases, increased breathing rate and anxiety further aggravate the problem. Hyperventilation can lead to unconsciousness due to the respiratory system's overriding mechanism to regain control of the breathing. Pilots encountering an unexpected stressful situation may subconsciously increase their breathing rate. Common symptoms of hyperventilation will include visual impairment, unconsciousness, lightheaded or dizzy sensation, tingling sensations, hot and cold sensations, muscle spasms. The treatment for hyperventilation involves restoring the proper carbon dioxide level in the blood. Breathing normally is both the best prevention and the best cure for hyperventilation. In addition to slowing the breathing rate, breathing into a paper bag or talking aloud helps to overcome hyperventilation. Recovery is usually rapid once the breathing rate is returned to normal. Stress. Stress is the body's response to physical and psychological demands placed upon it. The body's reaction to stress includes releasing chemical hormones, such as adrenaline, into the blood and increasing metabolism to provide more energy to the muscles. Blood sugar, heart rate, respiration, blood pressure, and perspiration all increase. The term stressor is used to describe an element that causes an individual to experience stress. Examples of stressors include physical stress, noise or vibration, physiological stress, fatigue, and psychological stress, difficult work or personal situations. Stress falls into two broad categories, acute and chronic. Acute is short-term, chronic is long-term. Acute stress involves an immediate threat and is perceived as danger. This is a type of stress that triggers a flight or fight response in an individual, whether the threat is real or imagined. Chronic stress can be defined as a level of stress that represents an intolerable burden, exceeds the ability of an individual to cope, and causes individual performance to fall sharply. Unrelenting pressures can produce a cumulative level of stress that exceeds a person's ability to cope with the situation. When stress reaches these levels, performance falls off rapidly. Pilots experience this level of stress are not safe and should not act as crew member or PIC. Pilots who suspect they are suffering from chronic stress should consult a physician. Fatigue. Fatigue is frequently associated with pilot error. Some of the effects of fatigue include degradation of attention and concentration, impaired coordination, and decreased ability to communicate. These factors seriously influence the ability to make effective decisions. Physical fatigue results from sleep loss, exercise, or physical work. Factors such as stress and prolonged performance of cognitive work result in mental fatigue. Like stress, fatigue falls into two broad categories, acute and chronic. Acute fatigue is short-term and a normal occurrence in everyday living. It is the kind of tiredness people feel after a period of strenuous effort, excitement, or lack of sleep. Rest after exertion and 8 hours of sound sleep ordinarily cure this condition. A specific type of acute fatigue is skill fatigue. This type of fatigue has two main effects on performance. Timing disruption, appearing to perform a task as usual, but the timing of each component is slightly off. This makes the pattern of the operation less smooth because the pilot performs each component as though it were separate instead of part of an integrated activity. Disruption of the perceptual field, concentrating attention upon movements or objects in the center of vision and neglecting those in the peripheral vision. Acute fatigue has many causes, but the following are among the most important for pilots. Mild hypoxia, which is oxygen deficiency. Physical stress, psychological stress, depletion of physical energy resulting from psychological stress, and sustained psychological stress. Acute fatigue can be prevented by proper diet and adequate rest and sleep. A well-balanced diet prevents the body from needing to consume its own tissues as an energy source. Adequate rest maintains the body's store of vital energy. Chronic fatigue, extending over a long period of time, usually has psychological roots, although an underlying disease is sometimes responsible. Continuous high stress levels produce chronic fatigue. Chronic fatigue is not relieved by proper diet and adequate rest and sleep and usually requires treatment by a physician. An individual may experience this condition in the form of weakness, tiredness, palpitations of the heart, breathlessness, headaches, or irritability. Sometimes chronic fatigue even creates stomach or intestinal problems and generalized aches and pains throughout the body. When the condition becomes serious enough, it leads to emotional illness. No amount of training or experience can overcome the detrimental effects. Getting adequate rest is the only way to prevent fatigue from occurring.